They're getting some more. Yeah.
Will the Senate please come to order? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I promised hurry up and wait, and I delivered. So we do have one bill that we can take up pending entry on the action calendar. So at this time, I would ask that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up H211, enact relating to data brokers and personal information, pending entry on the action calendar for immediate action.
Sorry. Pending those. Yep. Senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up H211 pending entry to the notice calendar for immediate consideration.
I would just note, Mr. President, that the data that I was given was incorrect. Thank you.
That's why we corrected it, Senator. Are you ready for the question? Question. You know what the question is. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. We will now take up H211. Is this the second reading? Okay. We have H211 we have on the calendar for action, H211. I don't have the bill, so I have no idea when it passed the House. Okay, so I will just recognize the senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President.
Whoops, excuse me. He says I can't do that yet. Please listen to the second reading.
211, that's relating to data brokers and personal information.
Senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President, when I woke up this morning, I had no idea I was going to be presenting this bill. So I will say this is the least prepared I've ever been for a floor report, and I hope that the Senate bears with me. I'm also going to take my keys out of my pocket for the request of my teammates. So, Mr. President, this is an important bill. Just also, bottom line up front, where it's coming through somewhat in the next midnight path because of the debates around S71. Your Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs had this committee in our possession, and it's very germane and relevant to that other topic that we've been waiting on hearing from the House. And so we did not want to release this bill from committee until we had a better idea of where the House was, because we wanted two vehicles that could go back and forth to address that very important topic that I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about tomorrow morning. So with that being said, to give you an idea why we suspended the rules a couple of times today to get this to finance and then to appropriations, I'll tell you about a very important bill that we're glad to be reporting today. It's really a bill that was going to add various statutory provisions to protect the personal information of the residents of Vermont. It's also going to require that these entities called data brokers have to provide notice for security breaches, certify that information they collect is used for legitimate purposes, and also delete personal information upon request. So that's the thrust of this bill. So this makes H211 makes several changes to state laws regulating data brokers and how their personal information of Vermonters is protected. I will plan to be speaking to both the underlying bill and the amendment from your committee, unless anybody objects. Section 1 of the bill begins amending the definitions section where a number of key changes and additions are made. Brokered personal information is amended to mean any information that is linked to an identified individual or to a device that is linked to one or more individuals in a household. This broadens the scope of that definition, which is currently instead limited to an exhaustive list of data elements. The definition of data broker, which we've had on the books for actually, I want to say 10 years or so. I was planning to present this tomorrow morning. I would have had all these bows and questions tied up nicely for you all, but I believe it's been on the books for about 10 plus years. And so this is just amending existing laws that Vermont has. So it's amending to and updating the meaning of direct relationship used within the definition of data broker. This definition is widened, which will likely capture more entities as data brokers subject to state registration and regulation. We also make some definitions on precise geolocation, processor, and sale are added to establish consistency with other Vermont privacy laws. Next, the bill amends Section 2431 in Title IX, which regulates how data brokers can acquire and disclose brokered information. Language is added that will require data brokers to maintain procedures ensuring that they only sell personal information to verified buyers, and that the buyers will not use the information to violate state or federal law. Next, the Security Breach Notice Act, found in Section 2435, is slightly amended to allow the Department of Financial Regulation to better enforce violations of this act. The Data Broker Security Breach Notice Act is added in Section 2436 of the bill to require that data brokers notify consumers and the Attorney General when it suffers a data breach that has resulted in unauthorized acquisition of broker personal information. The act is very similar to the Security Breach Notice Act, requiring data brokers to notify consumers within 45 days of a breach and the Attorney General within 14 days of a breach. Violations of this section are enforced through the Vermont Consumer Protections Act. Sections 244(3)(f) of the bill include a technical correction to the student privacy subchapter that ensures that just the subchapter is enforced through the Vermont Consumer Protection Act. Section 244(6) of the bill amends the current subchapter regulating data broker registration. The bill requires data brokers to register as such within 30 days of acting in the state and increases the annual registration fee to $900. I'll be doing the finance report and I'll be speaking to that in a moment. A data broker will also have to maintain a bond in the amount of $20,000 that runs to the state for any liability arising under the data broker subchapter. Since you all haven't seen this bill before, it's a longer report. It is a relatively dense bill, 43 pages. So that's why I'm going through the full report. So hasn't been back and forth yet. So this is the first time this bill has been reported on the floor. So I have another page or so. I do usually try to find cheesy jokes to inject, but I didn't have the time to prepare those cheesy jokes just to make the conversation a little more lively. I think I've already lost the audience, but it's late in the day and I'll continue on here. All right, this section also amends the current information that data brokers must provide when registered with the state. New requirements include whether the data broker collects sensitive data of Vermonters, such as their precise geolocation or reproductive healthcare data. Also, whether the data broker collects the consumer's account information and government ID information, whether it has sold the consumer's data to another government, a foreign actor, or to develop or the developer of a generative artificial intelligence system. The fine for a data broker who fails to register is increased from $50 per day to $200 per day, along with a cap of $10,000 being removed. Language is added to that the data broker is fined $1,000 per day if it fails to provide all registration information. Filing materially incorrect information incurs a one-time penalty of $25,000 and a fine of $1,000 per day if that information is not corrected. The bill then requires the Secretary of State, who manages data broker registrations, create a page on its website where consumers can view a spreadsheet of all registered data brokers, along with a URL to a page where the consumer can request the data broker delete the consumer's information. I'm going to speak more about that when I talk about the amendment you're going to see from your Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee. Enforcement of this section is also through the Vermont Consumer Protection Act. Section 2 of the bill charges the Secretary of State to study the feasibility of an accessible deletion mechanism that would simplify the process for consumers to have brokered personal information deleted. The Secretary will assume that such a mechanism will have several features, including allowing a consumer to delete all of its information held by all data brokers through one deletion request. It would also study the creation of a data broker registry fund that would support and offset the cost of creating such a mechanism. An appropriation of $50,000, and I think you'll hear about that from the Appropriations Committee after I report, is being requested to provide the Secretary's office with the assistance of a consultant. The report would be due back to the General Assembly by December 1st, 2028. Finally, the act is effective on January 1st, 2027 to give the Secretary's office time to update its broker registry system, and I do anticipate an amendment to one of those dates related to this in the appropriations report. All right, so that's what the underlying bill came over to us from the House. We took a lot of testimony on this. We heard from many individuals that understand the implications of this in practice in the industry. And so we had for many times addressed those through exemptions to the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, to the Federal Credit Fair Reporting Act, as well as the DPPA. Again, if we were doing this tomorrow morning, I'd have all these acronyms, and if you ask me during Q&A, we'll be taking a couple of recesses. The DPPA, we'll go with that. And so we did originally have a lot of exceptions to these cases because there are valid reasons why data brokers need to store this information that are already regulated by federal law and practice. And so if state law would then require them to have to delete those things, even though they're mandated with another federal mandate, it can create conflicting guidance. And so we were looking at that. But in the end, as we continue to drive down that path, it ultimately concluded that it is going to be expensive to stand up a deletion mechanism platform here in the state of Vermont. There is one state that kept coming up in this discussion that has it in place today, and you can Google it when you're not on the floor of the Senate because no electronic devices are allowed. But you can check out California's deletion platform. They have a similar data broker bills, as do many other states. Their fees are currently $6,600 a year. Ours are just $100 a year, and there's others that vary. So the spectrum of charges range. But they charge so much because they have one of the most sophisticated platforms right now for consumers to go on their website and be able to have their data deleted on all of the data brokers through a simple request. But they charge so much because it's such a sophisticated platform because it costs a lot to build that. And so your Committee on Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs was cautious to try to build the same expensive, comprehensive platform that California has built with a much larger population base and a much larger fee, and also that'd be relatively redundant. So instead, what your Senate Economic Development Committee on Housing and General Affairs, said that wrong too. But what we did instead, which made more sense to us, is we effectively removed the deletion mechanism requirements, and that addressed a lot of the concerns. So we're not mandating that we stand up the platform to allow yet. Okay, instead we're going to focus on this study, this $50,000, to really learn how what we could do to either piggyback off of a platform like California, anything that would cost less, because we are a smaller state, to emulate what a larger state has already done with the same operators, the same data brokers. Just didn't seem like we were ready to commit to that. So by removing the deletion mechanism mandates, the committee found that it was much more palatable to move this forward this year, to continue this discussion. As I'm learning, all these discussions do just continue from year to year. Next year's legislature will come back when this report is in hand with a concrete path forward that is financially sound, suitable, and reasonable and achievable for the state of Vermont. So there are those exceptions included in here. We did also make some changes to definitions, which I'll be speaking to as well. But important to note that one of the things that we did change from what the House did is we removed the deletion mechanisms and instead are entrusting the process to better inform a path that Vermont can afford to implement to give consumers the rights to have their data deleted that they provide to companies that they don't necessarily want those companies to still have them, while recognizing some data that's mandated through other regulatory processes and also is just available for a variety of reasons, including being publicly available, which you'll hear a lot about tomorrow from our friends and institutions, is in fact, there's nuance to how those should be treated. All right, so what we also did, and this you'll all hear, I think, some more about tomorrow as well in S71, but we did synchronize, or we changed the publicly available information definition in H211 to conform with our regional neighbors. So what you'll see in H211 is a definition that I believe Connecticut has, as well as New Hampshire, and about 13 other states. The one in S71 will be different. I'm not speaking to that bill, but just setting the stage for it. And that is a concern that's raised, is that if H211 and S71, and we have Kids Code, if they're all go into law and effect, there will be three different definitions of publicly available information on the books. And that can create confusion if you're an organization, a company, a nonprofit, trying to abide by these things, knowing which one to abide by will be a problem. But that's why we will be needed again next year. And so I'm sure the legislature will also work on that, and you'll hear more about that tomorrow morning as well. So you can read the bill as to what's included in there, as to what it doesn't include, where we made some changes to what the House sent us over here. We also made two non-substantive changes to address grammatical readability concerns. We deleted the language that allowed consumers to delete their broker personal information, and two references to that deletion right, not because we don't want consumers to be able to delete their data, because we want to do this right in a way that makes sense, that we can afford. And that's what we're going to come back next year's legislature. Whoever is seated here will work on that when they have a greater information from that hopefully approved $50,000 committed to the Secretary of State to flesh that out. Close to done. All right, we also amended this, we added some additional sections. So this came to us also from institutions where I might phone a friend if you inquire of me during Q&A. But we amended, since it seemed germane and relevant, we are amending the Cybersecurity Advisory Council to add 3 members to this council, including the chairs of the 2 information technology committees and the General Assembly and a member of the judiciary. We also extended the Cybersecurity Advisory Council, so the sunset of that council until June 30th, 2033. Again, that's where I would phone a friend from institutions, since I didn't have time to do that before tomorrow morning, if you have questions about that. We also added, there's another bill that came over to us, H650. It's an educational technology bill. It made its way out of House Commerce, came over here, Senate Education, did some due diligence on it. It received some split votes along the way, had some concerns, lots of constituencies and stakeholders raised a lot of serious implementation issues, and so that bill is residing on a wall in Senate Finance, and because of those concerns, I don't anticipate it moving out, and if it does, I'm not reporting because I'm not ready for that. We're trying to get out of here tomorrow, but that's neither here nor there. What we did want to do is there is some really valuable things in that education tech bill that was not controversial. That it seemed general agreement that we would want to start to capture and collect this information. And so what you're going to see in that section near the end, it adds a requirement that providers of educational technology provide additional information to the Secretary of State about their company and their ed tech products. We further narrowed that to be companies that know their products are being used in Vermont schools. And that's just a good way to start to understand what the implications are, what tools are being used, and that intersects with the topic about AI chatbots and other tools. And so this is building on existing registries that we have. We had Secretary of State testify on this. They support this language. There is no fee associated to these registrations. It's really just to get to know which companies are providing services in schools in Vermont, and that we ask for their privacy policies, their data acquisition policies, to again inform future legislative actions related to what technologies are used in our schools. All right, and the last thing I have to say is that the data broker section takes effect January 1st, 2027, and the rest of the bill takes effect July 1st, 2026. But again, I do expect an amendment on one of the dates in the appropriations report, and I just received a nod from a person on the side of the room to confirm that you will be seeing that. With that, Mr. President, your Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee voted 5-0-0 in support of this bill, and we encourage the Senate to do the same.
I would like to recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Chittenden, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Many of you know that I work at the University of Vermont, and often students, when they do my course evaluations, they say, he just talks too fast. It's my #1 criticism. But I'm guessing on this Thursday afternoon, with the sun shining, y'all aren't too upset with me talking fast. So I hope that it's not so fast that it's not unintelligible, but I will quickly go through the fiscal note of this. So this bill would change the annual registration fee of the data broker from $100 to $900. In fiscal year 2027, $50,000 would also be appropriated from the general fund to the Secretary of State. I'm going to defer to my friends on appropriations to speak to that aspect. The section that would update the annual broker registration fee is section 1, and this is for data brokers that are required to register annually on or before January 31st, following the year in which they met the definition of a data broker. Currently, there's a $50 per day civil penalty to a data broker that fails to register, capped at $10,000 a year. This would increase that penalty to $200 a day for failure to register with no cap. Data brokers that fail to provide, I think I already said this in the underlying one, so I'm going to skip that piece. I wanted to get to okay, this is what I thought. So there are currently 283 data brokers registered with the Secretary of State. So if you do the math out, about $100 a year, so we're currently taking in $28,300. The fees that are charged by other states, again, I don't have them in front of me. Had I be reporting this tomorrow morning, that's what I would have been doing, starting at 6 a.m., crossing my T's, dotting my I's. If you want to know what the other ones are, we can take a recess and I'll go get them. But what I recall from testimony is that some states charged $1,500 a year to data brokers, some as low as $100. I think we were one of the lowest ones, some $600, California being the largest one, $6,600. But to start to collect this information and to address the very real concerns I know I hear from constituents about what entities are doing with our data, We need to know and collect more and support studying how to empower consumers to be in control of their data as much as possible. And so this fee is aligned with and matching the costs associated to try to address those consumer needs and interests to want to be able to be empowered to address their concerns around the use of their data. So the increase in this registration fee would result in approximately $254,700 in annual fee income. I'm going to leave that next section to my friends in appropriations to speak to, but that's the biggest impact. Oh, no, that's also appropriations too. So that's the only thing that's really finance related. With that, Mr. President, your Senate Finance Committee this afternoon voted 4-0-3 in support of this bill, and we would hope the Senate would concur.
I recognize the senator from Grand Isle, Senator Brennan, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee on Appropriations took a look at this H211 this afternoon and recommended its passage with further proposal of amendment. And first in section 2, the study of accessible deletion mechanism report by striking out subsection C in its entirety. And we essentially removed the $50,000 appropriation, and in hopes that the increase from $100 to $900 in the bill would help maybe motivate them to fund their own report in that respect. And second, by striking out effective dates in their entirety and inserting in lieu of sections 1 and 4 will take effect January 1st, 2027. And this section 2 and 3 shall take effect on July 1st, 2026. And your committee vote on that was 601. We appreciate your support.
The question is, shall the recommendation of proposal of amendment of the Committee on Economic Development be amended as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the recommendation of the proposal of the Committee on Economic Development as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations. The question now is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was pretty nervous about this bill until I heard it had been done in California first. Boy, that calmed me down quite a bit. But anyways, could I question the reporter of the bill, please?
The reporter is interrogated.
I was wondering, Mr. President, if the reporter could just give us a look at what is deemed a data broker.
A great question, Mr. President. I just want to say not just California, too. There are other states that, again, if you want to take a short recess, I can get you a comprehensive list of those. And I also got a note from my seatmate who said that California has not yet stood up the deletion mechanism. They have the registry in place, and they are working towards that. And so a lot of what we're looking to do with that other $50,000 appropriation is to see how we can fit in alongside with that. As for a data broker, these are entities and organizations that, again, if I had prepped this, I would have had a more Merriam-Webster definition of clarity. But these are companies that acquire and accumulate information from a variety of different sources and use them to support marketing initiatives. They also use them to support industry decisions. There are entities like that were testified that are responsible for credit reports, for credit reporting, for background checks, for if you're going to get insurance rates. So there are a variety of different entities and organizations that collect data from multiple disparate sources, both publicly available information as well as privately acquired. These entities, they work in acquiring and accumulating those data from different points. I could list a couple of sample names, but I almost feel like some of our protocol is not necessarily to list specific company names.
Mr. President, it'd be helpful to me if the presenter could list a couple of names just to get a general idea about who we're talking about if the presenter felt comfortable with presenting those names.
I think one that comes to mind is LexisNexis. I think that they are a data broker of sorts, and so they acquire information from a variety of different sources. Then there's some industry-specific ones, but that's one name that comes to mind.
Mr. President, there's going to be some fee increases. I'm really concerned about increases to the public as far as to, for credit checks and stuff like that to conduct business on day-to-day business that we're all used to doing. Does the committee, during their testimony or the presenter of the bill have any indication that this will raise the cost to the general public just to do business that we're used to doing every day?
So I would say, Mr. President, that the testimony that we heard from, and we did hear from a lot of industry professionals that represented data brokers, a lot of their concerns were more with the language. I honestly don't remember hearing any concerns about the fee increase. I was commenting on that during Senate Finance this afternoon, that was a non-existent component of the debates and hallway discussions on this. So, Mr. President, no, but I would say my interpretation, my expectation is that this could indirectly create additional pressure on maybe credit report fees and so on. But I also know that there's an increasing amount of data from a variety of different sources that are quite lucrative to generate and use in a variety of different fronts. So I'm not necessarily, I don't recall any concerns about pleading that these fees would break the industry or apply undue financial pressure on the services they're trying to provide.
I thank the reporter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windsor.
Thank you. Let me help clarify because we're doing this a little at the last minute. There are no registered data brokers. These are not Vermont companies. These are huge companies. They operate mostly in the dark. We mostly don't know a lot about them because they don't deal direct consumer to company. They're not a direct consumer relationship. They are a third-party operation. And they're largely invisible, collecting information from public records, online activity. They're collecting data on us all the time. Every time you choose to buy something online, that data has been collected by somebody else. You wonder why those ads show up on your email. It's because they've been collecting that data and they know what you're interested in. They know what size shoe you have. They know what hair color you use. So they purchase our histories. They purchase all the information about us. Anything that's conducted online, they're collecting and selling and making money on our information. Most people have no idea what data brokers hold their information, or even that many of these companies exist. This means that consumers never actually agreed to provide these companies with their information in the first place. We see this bill as correcting a market failure. Typically, consumer power in the marketplace comes from the ability to vote with their wallets. That is to say that consumers can decide what retailers to buy from and what websites to visit, what organizations to provide information to, etc. They don't have that ability with a data broker. You are not in any direct relationship with the data broker. Consumers cannot decide what data brokers collect, sell, and profit off of their data. So we were the first in the country in 2018 to boldly go forward with a data broker bill and with data collection and create a data registry. States, tons of states have followed suit. We have been applauded by the whole country in this regard, and we should be very proud of it. This is really updating our data broker work, and I would just remind us that a lot of these data brokers are selling to the federal government, which is one thing we've been wanting to limit. I mean, in some places that's good, but not to ICE. LexisNexis had that experience by selling to ICE and was sued, which many of you may have read about that lawsuit. We are trying to, again, protect Vermonters from having their data sold by people who don't really care about them and really only care about their data. So I would urge you all to support this bill. This is a good bill. We worked hard on it, and we made some big compromises with industry to move this bill forward. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Essex.
Mr. President, if I could just get some clarification from the Chair of Economic Development, please, if I could inquire of the Chair.
Chair is interrogated if she so desires.
Mr. President, did I hear that we didn't really know who the data brokers were, that they were third party and we had no way of tracking them? Did I hear that?
We do know who they are. We know the ones that are doing business in Vermont because they register. That's part of what we're trying to do is shine some sunlight. We also know that there are probably there's an estimate between 700 and 800 data brokers that are working in Vermont who are not registered. I do believe we have, so that is what we're attempting to do, is to actually shine light on this business that we actually know is functioning, and we just want to make sure that everyone who's operating in Vermont pays what is legally required of them.
Mr. President, if there's 700 or 800 people operating in Vermont, why aren't we going after them and having them register? And with the current law, the law has been in place since 2018. Why hasn't that occurred already?
There are 700 or 800 companies, not people, and I would have to take a modest break to check with our ledge counsel, but I believe the Secretary of State does pursue the ones they know are operating here, and they are fined, as you have heard in this report, they are fined per day for not registering. And I can't answer the question of why we aren't identifying more and having more register, but that is part of what we're trying to accomplish going forward.
I think the chair, thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I interrogate the report of the bill?
Report of the bill is interrogated.
Just a couple of questions, please. Did you get testimony, or did the committee get testimony on breaches? Data breaches?
We had this bill for quite some time, and I don't recall any testimony of any breaches, but other committee members might want to chime in. But.
Okay, was there testimony on compliance and how, whether it was difficult, easy, has it gotten better? What I'm getting at, Mr. President, is this is an opportunity to actually see how some of our limited data regulations have been working and how we can improve the mechanics of them. So I'm just asking, I'd like to hear from the committee what they have learned, if there are suggestions that they have learned based on the experience of the existing data brokers.
So I think one thing regarding compliance, which would connect a little bit with the previous discussion on the floor, is that we have 283 registered data brokers with the Secretary of State. Now, those are not Vermont companies that I know of. California, who has a registry as well, they have 566. And so part of this was, there's a difference there, a delta. And it's, I would expect that the difference of those companies are very likely to still be collecting data about Vermonters. And so if anything, the compliance concern might be related to the fact that there are 200, quick math, I'm not going to do math on the floor, but 300 or so companies that have registered in California but not in Vermont. So that could be a compliance concern that partly addressed or raised this. And there's no fines currently from the Secretary of State to any of those companies as of now. So we're not fining those companies as of now, I'm being told by my seatmate.
Okay, that is significant. I appreciate the Senator. Thank you.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can assist my committee colleagues just a little bit, just to kind of paint a different tint to the issue. Not all data brokers are bad, operate on with a negative business intent. For example, you apply for a mortgage, you apply for a credit card, you apply to purchase a vehicle, et cetera. The data which is already accumulated behind you supports that particular application effort. That's a good use of data brokerage. So when we talk about this, please don't think that all data broker activity is negative. Some of it is positive, and we're trying to find that balance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a confession to make to the body. I violated a rule that has been sacrosanct, and that is you don't read a bill that you've already voted yes on after the vote has gone someplace else. I'm going to break that today. One of the concerns that I had that I saw today when I was on the committee that originated the bill and I voted in favor of it, And then I went to the Finance Committee, on which I also sat, and I was ready to vote on it again, and then I made the mistake of reading it. And in the reading, I looked carefully at the Cybersecurity Advisory Council that's described in Section 3 of the bill. And a concern came up as I looked at the fact that we had added 3 new positions on that commission, one of which was a representative from the judiciary appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Now, if we look at what that commission is charged with doing, it's charged with advising on the state's cybersecurity infrastructure, best practices, communications, protocols, standards, training, and safeguards. And the question arose in my mind, are we asking members of the judiciary to sit on a commission like this that advises on how the commission is going to in fact operate? And these would be situations potentially in which there would be a lawsuit in which the judiciary would have to be the judge of the result. I raised that in the committee this afternoon. Of course, we have plenty of time to work on it, to talk about it, to research it, to study it, to bring witnesses in to find out the answer. But of course, we had to do it today. And so what the committee, as I understand it, unless I misunderstood, agreed to do was to pass the question over to the Committee on Institutions, which was going to look at it afterwards regarding that, to see if this was an issue. And so I'd like, if I may, to interrogate the reporter of the Institutions Committee to see if that got done, or if they were aware of it.
There is no report from the Institutions Committee. Senator from Franklin, you may interrogate the reporter of the bill.
Mr. President, so in my floor speech, I appreciate the question from the senator, and I was actually, when I mentioned that I might phone a friend from institutions, it was because this language did come over from them, and I don't remember a lot. I'm getting somebody pointing at a member of institutions that might be able to speak to some of this, and I will sit down now.
Mr. President, may we take a brief recess?
Excuse me? We'll take a brief recess. Will the Senate please come to order?
I hear you.
Senator from Chittenden.
If I might, Mr. President, I'd love to yield the floor to the junior senator from Bennington to respond more thoroughly to the senator's inquiry about the cyber security task force.
Senator from Chittenden, you are welcome to sit down, and the senator from Bennington is welcome to be recognized. Senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I was told that I'm not the junior since we both came in at the same time, but regardless. So, and I'm not going to say who gave me that advice. Just in terms of the senator's concern regarding whether a member of the judiciary sitting on an advisory council that gives advice to somebody else, that somebody else might then be sued, would there be a conflict regarding that? And the short answer is no. The judiciary has different folks that are part of them actually sued directly many, many times. And there are enough judges that there simply no conflict that can be arised from that. And we did speak with legislative counsel about this, and there was consensus with legislative counsel on that part.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you propose to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Economic Development as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H211. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would ask that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up H211 and move it through all remaining stages of passage.
The senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to place H211 in all remaining stages of passage. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We just went through, okay. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
H211, an act relating to data brokers and personal information.
That's concurrence with proposal. The question is, shall H211 pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we have passed H211 through all remaining stages. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would ask that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message the action just taken on H211 and act relating to data brokers and personal information to the House forthwith.
Senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate rules be suspended in order to message our actions on H211 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that is all the work that we can accomplish tonight. So I will, in a moment, make a motion to have us come back in the morning. I just want to give a brief update to senators about where the various crucial conference committees stand. It seems to me that they can be buttoned up quickly enough that we can leave here tomorrow night. I would expect it to be not a short night, but well into the evening, if not a late night. But it looks, if I had to make bank, I would say that we would be out of here tomorrow night before midnight. So with that said, there is always the possibility that we hit a snag. So this comes with a rather large asterisk, but things look good. We had a lot of movement in all of our relevant conference committees today. So I thank senators for staying around a little longer today. We will ask you to stay longer than this tomorrow night. And so I would alert your support teams at home that you may be late, but that you will be coming home for good at that point. So with that said, Mr. President, pending announcements, I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. Friday, May 29th, 2026.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Conference on the Yield Bill will meet at 5:30.
Are there any further announcements? I have a brief announcement. I'm a little disappointed that we're not out of session 2 weeks ago, and I think that we should have been. That said, I've had plans for several weeks. I've been asked to be a speaker in Washington State, so I will be leaving first thing in the morning, and am quite happy that the pro tem will be able to finish out his time here at the podium. That said, I have a few thank yous. I would like to thank the Committee on Healthcare for their work on S-157, a bill to improve how recovery housing works. That bill started in my office, and I am very proud that we got it over the finish line. I would like to thank the Judiciary Committee for their work on S-193, something that the legislature has been working on for ages, and we finally made some progress, something that I was very involved with, and as some of you will remember, we had many victims of those crimes in the State House to share their experiences with legislators, the media, and the public, and I'm pleased that we've made some progress there. On some of the other things, we have made progress, but I feel there's a lot of it that's too little too late, and I continue to hear stories around the state from people who can't afford to live here. When it comes to property taxes, I heard from a superintendent of schools who told me he loves his job, he loves his community, his kids love the school, but he said, my property taxes have doubled in the time I have been here, and that's just over 6 years. He said, when my kids are out of school, I am likely to leave the state. On healthcare, we made some progress. Again, I feel it's too little and it's too late. I have some friends that are in their 30s, married with no kids, paying $38,000 for healthcare this year with a high deductible. When it comes to land use, we made some progress with 325. If you remember, I was not in office in 2024, but I was here with my chief of staff and several others organizing rallies and pushing back against that and some of the other bad legislation that we spent a massive amount of time this year on fixing the problems of the past. And we did push off the implementation of the so-called Burt Amendment. And I want to share with you all that I went to a farm last week, and I met with a couple of young guys in their 30s, and there's a big crew of them doing the very thing I believe we should be doing in the state of Vermont. They have formed a co-op. They are taking care of a huge piece of land and producing food on it. They're growing fruit, they're growing vegetables, they're growing meat, they're making wine, they are making cider, they are doing CSAs. And when their customers come to the farm to pick up their CSA order every week, they have a community meal. And they built a small pole barn. And for those of you who don't know what a pole barn is, it is 5 cedar trees that have been peeled and placed for supports. It has a wooden floor and a shed roof. No walls, nothing else. And the NRB came to them and told them that was a violation of Act 250. They've spent thousands of dollars on lawyers. It's unacceptable. We should be encouraging that very type of behavior, because the 30 by 30 that no one talks about in this building is we have a goal to produce 30% of New England's food by 2030, and we are far from it. And if you look at New England, there are 2 states with agricultural land. That's Vermont and Maine. When it comes to housing, our housing is still far too expensive. I had a group of young business leaders from Chittenden County in my office. A young lady, probably in her early 30s, told me she makes 6 figures and can't afford to buy a home in Chittenden County. So much to do. I intend to be back here to work with those of you who will be back next year to continue to make progress, because if we are going to save this great state, we have to support the people on our working lands. We have to make sure we continue to encourage trades and apprenticeships, which we also made some progress on, because we have to change our demographics if we're going to change this state. And finally, I would like to say a fond farewell to my friend, Senator Baruth. I, one time when I was in the Senate, had a lobbyist come up to me and say, "You and Senator Baruth must hate each other." And I said, "No, actually, we disagree on some issues, but I quite frankly have always enjoyed his friendship, and we always have fun when we hang out together, and I will miss that friendship when you're gone, but know that I appreciate you, and I'm happy that your last day here will be on the podium." Are there any further announcements? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for those words. They mean a great deal to me. Senators might know that the Lieutenant Governor and I often faced off in this chamber on gun safety / gun control issues, depending on which of us was categorizing the action of the day. So I always knew when I came into the building and I ran into the Lieutenant Governor and he was wearing his American flag tie, that it was one of those days. So it's usually a black outfit, American flag tie, and we would have it out on the floor. But as you said, we were always friends. And I think that's, again, the best of what we can do in this building is across the aisle friendships. That has been lost in Washington. And as a result, they have lost their way. But I think it is still the tradition here that we treat each other as human beings. And I will be very sorry not to be working with you anymore. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on a lighter note, as the president outlined, we're a little later in the session than we normally tend to go. And it appears that there's a custom to recognize birthdays. So one which we don't probably normally get to recognize, being that we're later in the session, is one of our more colorful and one of our more vocal senators. So with pleasure, I'd like to extend a happy birthday to the senator from Essex. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Happy birthday. Are there any further announcements? Senator from Caledonia.
Senate Republicans will meet briefly after we adjourn.
Which corner?
Right corner.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. Friday, May 29th of 2026. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We'll stand in adjournment until 10